All right, all right, all right. All right, we got an echo here. Somebody got to turn down something. Um, Happy MLK Day, good people. Welcome back to another open court discussion in the Counselor's Corner. I am your host, David Lorenzo Glover, aka the Controversial Counselor. Joining me is the big bad wolf, Herb Lewis.
Oh,
And then we also have a panel member that joined us from the LinkedIn platform, Jackie Brown. She'll get a chance to come in, but let me go through the introduction. And for the rest, you will have to wait and see who joins the panel. Recap from this past Monday show. Can you be a whole person without a partner? We focused on spending time with friends, volunteering, along with doing other activities outside of your normal daily um, comfort zone activities. Go back and check out the replay if you're interested in this particular content. Okay, moving along. For tonight, January 16th, we will discuss what effects has the manosphere had on romantic relationships. So we're going to dive into some things, maybe a few points like gender roles, feminism, empathetic communication, could be sexual market value. Those are some of the, buzzwords, just to name a few. Now let's move on to the segment two. When do you draw the line with a needy partner? You know, those people that either they're always seeking validation, everything they do or say, they kind of need your validation, your approval, uh, texting constantly throughout the day, all day, um, irrationally jealous that they don't want you to really be around somebody the opposite sex, even sometimes family members or whatever. They just want you in their presence. And then we'll talk about more. So the table has been set. We have the full course meal. We just need you to bring the sides. So let's go. Please like and share our video, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Controversial Counselor. And let's go, folks. We like 36 away from reaching 600, another milestone. So we just need 36 more subs to reach 600. All right. So here we are tonight. Herb was good with you.
another day, man. Dallas is look like they putting up a pitch battle right now, so everything is good from my perspective. So aside from a few knuckleheads that's like to troll in the chat, but we'll address that some other time.
Jackie, are you with us?
I am here.
How, how
Blessed
you doing?
evening. I am blessed, and you
Same
both
here.
are blessed as well.
Same here. Appreciate that.
Yes,
So,
indeed.
typically on this, platform, we go through, you know, give our little talking points, like go through the introduction, and then might tell, some kind of housekeeping stuff or what's been going on with us the past few days since we last met. So, me, uh, still grinding in the schoolhouse. I don't know, this change of weather seemed like I'm catching wreck with this during this winter season already. I'm like, man. So I'm gonna work my way through this show tonight, but it's like this is starting to be real annoying. But one of the things I wanted to do before we get into the actual content, the effects that the manosphere has on relationships, at one of my professional developments, and it was for all our middle school counselors, we did an activity and it was called the drawbridge. And with the drawbridge, it had six main characters. So I want y'all to keep these characters in mind. It was the Baron, the Baroness, the Gateman, the Boatman, the Friend, and the Lover. So what you want to do is kind of rank the person that was the most responsible for this particular incident. And this kind of ties in like some of the conversations that we have on a regular basis. So let me begin. So the drawbridge. As he left for a visit to his outlying districts, the jealous baron warned his pretty wife, "Do not leave the castle while I'm gone, or I will punish you severely when I return." So we already know how women may feel about that statement. But as the hours passed, the young baroness grew lonely, and despite her husband's warning, she decided to visit her lover, damn, who lived in the countryside nearby. The castle was situated on an island in a wide, fast flowing river. A drawbridge linked the island to the mainland at the narrow point in the river. "Surely my husband will not return before me." Oh, she's sneaky. Is what they say. What Sean does he say? One of those sneaky links. She thought and ordered the servant to lower the drawbridge and leave it down until she returned. After spending several pleasant hours with her lover, the Baroness returned to the drawbridge, only to find it blocked by the gateman, wildly waving a long, cruel knife. "Do not attempt to cross the bridge, Baroness, or I will have to kill you." Damn, he cried. "The Baron ordered me to do so." Fearing for her life, the Baroness returned to her lover and asked him for help. "Our relationship is only a romantic one," so he pretty much saying, "Listen, that's all we do. We get down, we have sex. That's it. Nothing more. That's already been put out there." He said, "I will not help." The Baroness then sought out a boatman on the river, explained the plight to him, and asked him to take her across the river in a boat. He said, "I will do it, but only if you could pay the fee of 5 marks." "But I have no money with me," the Baroness protested. "That is too bad. No money, no ride," the boatman said flatly. Her fear growing, the Baroness ran crying to the home of her friend, and after explaining her desperate situation, begged for enough money to pay the boatman his fee. "If you had not disobeyed your husband," and I know women will have an issue with that word, disobey, uh, "this would not have happened," the friend said. "I will give you no money." With dawn approaching and her last resort exhausted, the Baroness returned to the bridge in desperation and waited to cross to the castle and was slain by the gateman. After reading the story, consider the responsibility that each holds for the death of the Baroness. Rank the characters from 1 to 6, least responsible. And after you have determined your ranking, never that part is we broke out into groups. So, Herb, Jackie, reading that, who do you think was the most responsible for the death of the Baroness?
The Baroness.
And why do you think that?
The Baroness.
So why do you think the Baroness was the most responsible?
Because all of her actions created that situation.
Okay. Herb, what's your take?
I concur.
Hmm.
First of all, when you walk out of disobedience from your husband, who is supposed to be the head of the household, excuse me, and you go against that, then you're breaking the laws of God. So once you break that order, then whatever comes is from sin. So once you create that sin, everything else is going to fall into line because you already opened the gates up from your action.
Okay. Shout out to BGS for joining us. He said the Baroness, and I had said the Baroness, but it was interesting that a lot of people in our group, but the all the other counselors, many of them said the Baroness, but some of them went with like the gate man. And who do y'all rank number two?
The gentleman that I personally speaking, I would say the gentleman who gave her the money so she could cross.
Definitely.
You said the one who,
Definitely,
the one who,
because the enemy used him to help her orchestrate that whole deception.
but he didn't. But he didn't. Her
He
lover didn't give her money.
assisted her. Did you say he gave her the money?
No, he didn't give her. He
Oh,
said
he
all he
did
do. He's just her lover. He's like
not that
he
one.
didn't want no parts of that.
How did she get across the first the first time? How did she get across? Because she had to get back. So how did she get across?
Well, the bridge was set up. She was able to get across, but she kind of told the gatesman to leave the bridge down, but he didn't. So when she came back, it was up. So
Okay,
she had no way to get back across. And she when she went to her lover, he told her pretty much we're just lovers. Like
right.
that's the that's that's the expectations we already put out there. You creep over here, we do what we do, but I'm not giving you any money.
So the gate man is number two for me
Okay. And
because the same way he lied to her, her situation was a whole lie. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna get serious with this
Whew.
one because it's the truth. It's
now
the truth.
now I kind of said the husband, and
Mm,
the reason why I said that, but then after we processed it and thought about it, my answer probably would have switched. But I'm just looking at my rankings because I'm thinking like, okay, you telling your woman to do something, but you're really not giving her no explanation. Like, kind of just stay in the house. I'll be back. You better not go outside. Like, I don't know who wants. Typically, when you tell someone like that, they're gonna say, "Well, hell, why the hell he keep trying to keep me in the house?" But after you think about it, it was more to it. I think he knew that she had a lover, so
Oh,
and that's why he kind of informed the gate man, like, if she come back over there, you can kill her because she shouldn't have left the house. So I had him, the husband, number two, but I think I would have changed it. Who did you have two, Herb?
ah, that's a tough one. I'm kind of stuck in between the boat operator and the drawbridge man. I don't know. I'm kind of vacillating between those two because the way I look at it is this: you're operating in a land, where at least I'm going to look at it from this perspective where you're allowed to operate. And then you're trying to charge somebody for something you probably usually get for free just because you think an individual has money. Kind of reminds me of a capitalist system. So, from that aspect, I think he's probably number two.
Okay. Then I had the lover and like the boatman. So I'm not going to go through everyone, but it's something I wanted to read. Like, if I got it out here, like what each of these people represent, and then we can move on from this. Um, so the Baron, he represents the white male. He sees the value of the group in society. The Baroness, she represents those who are oppressed. She has little say in setting values, but is expected to follow them. The gateman represents authority, police, military. He has no say in creating rules, but must enforce them, regardless of personal beliefs. So, a lot of people in the group, with the counselors, they were saying, "Well, he he he's the one." A lot of them blamed him. They said because he's the one who actually committed the act, and it was like he could have just kind of turned his cheek and let her over, instead of murdering her. But I'm thinking like some people had spoke out and said, well, what if he was told by the Baron, like if she come through and you let her through, she leaves, then I'm gonna kill you. So I guess he was just actually doing his job. The boatman represents institutions, education, church. They provide service for a cost. If you have money, you have opportunity, which she didn't have any money. The friend, she represents the white liberal with good intentions. She lives in a my framework mentality. I'll accept you based on my value system. Because of this system, diversity is celebrated her way. I'll accept you as long as you act white, male, female. So pretty much she didn't give her anything because she said you kind of disobeyed your husband. You shouldn't have left in the first place. and I'm not covering your tracks. And the lover represents enticements, the things we fall in love with, but in reality or practice, they don't always help. They may be physical, emotional, or ideological. Examples: U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So that was kind of, I thought that was interesting. Any other comments or feedback that y'all have regarding that little exercise?
It's interesting though because and the one thing I like that you did was you wrote down your initial synopsis, because over time things like that change for people, especially when you get older. You start to slot things differently. You start to look at things differently. So that might be something you have to send me through Messenger, so I can actually look at that and incorporate that in a variety of different ways.
Okay,
I found
sounds
it to
good.
be interesting as well. I Yeah, and like uh, Mr. Wolf said that things change with people and time changes people. So a lot of time, I was just having that discussion earlier with someone about how with with time we start to see things different depending on our spiritual stance or not. Things will change in our lives and circumstances will create that change to happen. So that's
Yeah, and even if you think about the woman, maybe at a younger age, she would say, "Man, oh, the hell with him. He's gonna be going all day. I'm about to go out and do my thing." But maybe as an older woman, she may say, "You know what? He's going. He's handling his business. He's taking care of everything. I'm gonna just sit here and occupy myself." Even though she grew restless and was bored. So there's different ways you can look at it. PGS said, "If she's oppressed, why did she try in return?" And uh,
That's a good question because I'm looking at it in a different standpoint because here's the thing. I would not have used that example as her being oppressed because of the simple fact that if you get into any relationship, that's by choice, correct? I don't think anywhere it made it seem like she was bound to the place. If she's in a respectful relationship where she's doing right, that would not have been a problem for her to stay home. But because she's already doing wrong, that's the problem. When there's not a draw outside that's going to bring you to outside, then you have no reason to be there. If your focus is on home and it's all of home, which is your husband or your king, then that is supposed to be the focus. And no one should be pulling you anywhere. So once you start to desire outside of home, then there's more to it than just outside. So she got what she coming because she did wrong. And once you go outside of the laws and rules of God, then he's not going to allow you to continue that kind of stuff. He probably had an intuition like, yo, she's up to something. And of course, it was right, just like we all feel it when our partner or whomever is doing wrong.
good way
I'm
to break
sorry.
it down. That was very.
I can't hear you.
I said that was a good way to break it down. That was very insightful, and it's true. She had choices. She had choices. So typically, people that's oppressed, they probably had limited options, and
Hmm.
she definitely had choices. So she decided, and then maybe at a certain point, he caught on to it. Maybe one day he double dipped on her, and uh, whatever he was going to do, whether he was going out to work, decided, let me circle back, let me roll up here and see. And was there for a while and realized, like, okay, where the hell was she at for these couple hours? And then told the gatesman, oh, you got to watch out for her. And then finally gave her ultimatum, pretty much, not even ultimatum, pretty much, well, ultimatum, pretty much told her, like, you need to stay home. You need to stay home. Do not leave the castle. So that was, like I said, was interesting. But now we're gonna get into the effects the manosphere has on romantic relationships. So Herb, talk to us about some of the things that you think, some of the effects you think it has on romantic relationships.
Well, first of all,
Because
let me.
we know what we hear from
Yeah.
like people in the counselor's corner and all that stuff, that men in the manosphere, they don't like women, they hate women, and that's just probably just not even in the counselor's corner, just overall, but that's just like a group of a couple thousand, mostly women, and that's kind of their take.
Well, I think, and it's like you said. I think a lot of people. Well, first of all, the ignorance about the manosphere is pervasive at best, just terrible at worst. The manosphere essentially is a place for men to learn how to be men. First and foremost, that's what the manosphere is. Now, one of the tools that they use is what in the manosphere is referred to as the red pill, and I won't get into how all that terminology came about because it takes away from the discourse. So we're looking at a generation of men. It doesn't matter what ethnicity you are, Hispanic, Asian, Caucasian, African American. We're looking at a generation of younger men, Gen X and younger, who simply put don't know how to deal with modern age women. When I say modern age women, I'm talking women in our age demographic because we have so many things going against us. You see the rising tide of feminism, whether you're talking first, second, third, or fourth wave, that's probably coming upon us soon. And if you, as a young man, don't know how to navigate the stuff, don't know how to deal with women, then you are at a distinct disadvantage. We hear the term incel creeping into the lexicon. Now, when we were younger, there was rarely a guy, if he wanted sex, he couldn't get sex from somewhere and without paying for it. Nowadays, that's not true. You have a demographic of men under the age of 30 who are still confirmed virgins. Think about that for a moment. Most of us carry a tool in our hand that allows us to have unfettered access to just about anyone that's willing to reciprocate that interaction. And you mean to tell me that there are guys out who can't have sex? Not because they're physically incapable, just because they're not what a woman is seeking. So the manosphere is seeking to return equilibrium to men so they're no longer being dominated by women. And that's just one of many things. So depending on, and this is what I asked, this is what when I was on the Cole Harrison show, and shout out to her because she's the one that asked this question. I thought it was a very good question, especially for those who don't know about the manosphere, especially the black manosphere. So I want to acknowledge her in this as well. When she asked that question, I was like, you know what? That's something we need to bring here because she's not going to be able to speak to it the way we can, or at least certainly the way that I can. Because I've been following this philosophy, and make no mistake about it, it's a philosophy. A lot of people think it's a group of men getting together trying to dominate women, trying to be misogynist, and it's nothing of the sort. We talked about the social contract on this particular platform in this show, and that's all it's seeking to do. It's seeking to return the social contract between men and women, so men are no longer at a disadvantage, and they're operating on a fair playing field. So that's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand. So from a female perspective, yes, it's hurting romantic relationships because they no longer have the power. But if you ask some men, I'm actually back in control of my happiness. So now we hear about the passport bros and all this other stuff that's really starting to bubble to the surface. So from my perspective, no, but from other people's perspectives, yes, it is.
So, Jackie, he said a lot. What's your take, or what's your whole thought process when you think of the manosphere?
Well, I must say that I am really taken aback because I'm not fully equipped on the information. I've never really researched that and I never looked into it. But from conversations I've had in counseling with with some male um, this week, interesting, they brought up these things they were reading and different sites they went on where men were just bashing women and all this stuff, and how most of the men that went through a divorce, how they're so torn down by, the divorce and all of this. And just to hear that there's a platform for them to release is a good thing. But the thing is, there has to be some kind of communication that's going to prevent them from going the route of hate or feeling like women are no good, or I just honestly believe it's the choice of who we pick and the amount of time you take to learn someone, and asking the right questions and making sure you wait long enough to see the answers, and I just believe that when people make choices and out of just what they see, and then they get a viper, and they get someone who is going to just take what they have and then destroy them, then that was not a choice from God at all. And we have to have a foundation. And if our foundation is not God, what do we have? Where are we drawing our direction from, our guidance from? So I just believe that there has to be more communication between the male and the female, because if we don't start talking, no one will ever understand the next side. Everyone is stuck on, there are good women out here, there are good men out here, but when it's all said and done, everyone that's doing the wrong things are being showcased more than the men who are doing the right things. And the problem is, the more we see that, and the more we see our men going to other men, how are we supposed to, as women, literally process that? Especially when you have now a generation of women who feels like they don't have to be guided by a man, they don't need a man, they don't need all of that, which is a lie from the pit of hell. And my thing is, I don't get the reasonings behind, okay, I get it, the woman's liberation, all of that. But here's my thing. What happened to common decency as human beings? Just to do right by the other person. What happened to just taking your position as a man or a woman and walking it and doing it and living it and working it the right way? I can't bash anyone, because there's always a root to everyone's life, their the way they live, the way they process, the way they, put things together, everything. There's a root of that from the time they came out of their mother's womb. They were being molded from the family and from everything else in who they're going to become today. So a lot of things, if the trauma is not dealt with prior, you're going in broken. So while you're in there broken, you're also not able to help anything that the other person bring in, because your mindset is already stuck on stupid. Lack of a better word, I'm sorry. But I just feel like more communication between both sides would prevent a lot of this mess. And if a person doesn't want to be in something anymore, all they got to say is, listen, I'm gone. And let the person know, listen, I can't do this. I don't want this. I can't handle this, whatever. But if you're getting into someone with clarity, with understanding, with the wisdom of where we both are, then that thing should flow if it's the right person. I'm sorry. I will stop
No,
talking.
no, no,
Oh.
no. You never need to apologize about speaking extemporaneously or longer on this platform. We encourage people to, sometimes your thoughts, you're working through your thoughts as you speak. So
Mhm.
there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And there's a lot of truth to what you said. Obsidian Mamiya Ali will refer to what you were saying as the non-versation. In other words, the non-conversation that isn't occurring between black men and black women. And I'm going to specifically refer to a content creator who is still among us. His work is always going to stand among the manosphere, particularly the black manosphere, because that's what he was attempting to do. But he was vilified for it, and that's Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels and BGS brought him on. An acknowledgement to BGS. I really can't say enough about BGS, but that was Kevin Samuels' goal, was to unite families, or to bring men and women together to create families. Because as we all know, that's the structural building block of our communities. I believe that's part of what BGS is talking about when he says, why are we addressing relationships and not the structure? Because if we don't address the structure, then relationships will never really occur as they did years before. Now, we can sit here and say that relationships years before between men and women weren't always great. They were full of animosity. Nobody ever got all they wanted. Nobody ever does get all they want in a negotiation, which is what a relationship should be. Should be two people coming together to mutually benefit each other while raising kids in that union. That's been destroyed. And now we see Gen X, we're sitting at the youngest is going to be early 40s, early to mid 40s. The oldest are going to be approaching 60. I'm 51, so I'm literally in the middle of being a Gen X, born in 71. We have dropped the ball on that. We look at our demographic in terms of the amount of single mothers that we have produced, the amount of animosity between each other, whether it's because women have gone out and have gotten a measure of freedom because they're able to go to school, work, earn their own money. So you heard the rise. I don't need no man. Well, everybody needs somebody. It's just a matter of how much. Because I'm on the record as saying I don't need a woman to live day to day, but I do want one in my life. I make sure that I have women around me in some way, shape, or form. So if I want somebody to talk to, I can call one. If I want somebody to do something with, I can pick up the phone and say, "Hey, look, what are you doing? I got tickets to a game. I want to go here. I want to go there. I need somebody to join me." This is something we discussed last week about being whole. Everybody needs a counterbalance. Yin has yang. And if you look at that symbol, both of them contain the opposite of the other, just in small amounts. But in order for us to address what the problems are, we needed to bring people back to the table. And that's what the Manosphere was doing. The Manosphere was saying, okay, look, this is what we're facing. How do we get back what we've lost? How do we bring these women back to the table? And BGS always says this. If you change the environment, they will come back to the table. Now they're back to the table. We have to find out a way to negotiate. And the only way you can do that is have the hard conversations. That's what the Manosphere is actually fostering. It just comes across as bashing because women are unaccustomed to being held accountable for the things that they've done. We've always seen men, no matter what the ethnicity of that man is, be brought to task for what he's done or for what he hasn't done. So whether a man's not earning enough money, he's a scofflaw, he's a deadbeat father, whatever the case is, we've seen that plastered across social media, across television, and even in movies, TV shows. There's not one situation in one of those mediums that men have not been focused on. But if I ask you the equivalent of the color purple for women, you can't name a movie.
And like shout out to Dr. Anwar for joining. Hit that like button. Like BGS said, hit that like button, folks. Keep it going. Hit the like button. And one of the things that that was said that kind of triggers my thought process is when you think about these conversations or the structure, uh, because when we start dating, there's no conversations about structure and all that stuff. It's like we kind of putting ourselves in situations as far as dating without getting to know each other. And before you know it, somebody's moved in someone's house, and you really don't know them. You might look at it like, well, this is gonna help me financially, but
Mhm.
you really don't know that person because y'all haven't had these conversations. And I think sometimes people get annoyed with certain levels of question. Maybe, Herb, your 100 questions,
Hmm.
and then you kind of know, like, if somebody get annoyed with like basic questions and they get frustrated, you kind of already know they're a lame duck. Like, it's only a matter of time that they're gonna walk away, or they're not gonna respond the way you want them, because you probably challenging their thoughts, and they like, man, I never had a man ask me that, or I never had these conversations. Usually we go out, we hang out, we laugh, and then we're together, but we never had no deep, structured conversations.
And can I interject?
Sure.
So you made a valid point, where you stated that, it was stated that we don't have conversations. People in this day and time don't really have conversations. They have text messages. Um, they have tweets. They have whatever messages that they use to convey their thoughts, emojis, um, all these wonderful things that these people seem to enjoy, which I can't even keep up with. I'm sorry. Um, I may do one or two emojis, but that's about it. I hate texting because you can't convey what you feel in it. People also misread text messages, but anyway, the communication piece of it is missing. And when we actually don't, and I keep going back to this foundation thing, when there's no foundation, you can't expect people to do right, because right now we're living in an ungodly world, and a lot of morals, values, all of that is gone down the tubes. At least in this generation of our age, you find that we still have some morals and values from grandma, mom, whomever, that we still hold on to and live by. But after our generation and kids and grandkids or whatever, you find that that generation was let loose. Those generations were both let loose to just do whatever. We had to start conforming to the changes, or trying to accept the changes, or trying to. I feel like communication is the key for everything. So if
And,
we don't start talking, we're gonna all fall off on what's going on
and I
with
think,
dating. And if you're not having a conversation before you go out on a date, then you shouldn't really go out on that date, because you'll know where a person's head is.
and I think part of that has to deal with, back in our days, only source we had was other individuals and based on
Hmm.
their experiences. But in this world with social media and just communication and technology, the younger people, they go to Google and all this YouTube and all this stuff, and they get that information. So an older voice is kind of drawn out to them. They look at it as, all I need is to Google this and get a quick 2 3 minute conversation or this or that, instead of going through the process.
Mm.
They don't trust the process.
Hmm.
They want to get to the end result real quick, but then they figure out, like, damn, it's a lot of missing pieces in between getting to the end result without going through the whole process, where we heard people over and over. I enjoyed those. Were my best teachers, that people used to bring a personal connection, and they would talk about certain things and introduce their life, and you would be engaged. But these kids now, they look at you like, why are you talking about that? When was that? 1970, 1980. We're in this year. But when we were growing up, if it was the 70s or 80s, we might have had grandparents talking about stuff in the 50s and the 60s, and we listened.
Hmm.
So that's a big part of the communication, that listening piece.
I just want to address the question that Greg Hooper asked. He says, question to the panel. If the historic family is a desirable goal and outcome, I'm sorry, is the historic family a desirable goal and outcome? If so, shouldn't our behavior rules be structured to create this outcome? I'm sorry, create this result? The answer is yes. For many people, that is, but the only problem is those people lack the ability to get there.
So how do you
Dating's
get
not
there?
the, say
See,
it
that's the
again.
thing. How do you even get there? Because when you look at it, it comes from your foundation. Now, what are you drawing from? See, and even with social media, you have both the good and the bad out there, right? And while you're drawing from all these different things out here, you have to have a foundation that's going to be a stable foundation. So if you need that result to happen, then what are you drawing from to create that in your life? Such as, is your foundation going to be God? Is your spiritual foundations what you're going to stand on so that you can create that environment for yourself? Because if we all go back to how the setup was from the beginning from God, it was supposed to, God delights in family. It's supposed to be family. So because the enemy don't want family, all these other distractions, all these other draws, all these other things. But the thing is, there got to be a foundation. And if there's no solid foundation, then everyone is going to be walking around pulling from whatever desires, pulling from whatever feelings, pulling from whatever they think that is right. And even the Bible says in the end times, man will be calling wrong right and right wrong. So now we have to look at where are we drawing our foundation from, because everybody that comes into our life is not supposed to be there. Everybody that we see and talk to, they're only for a moment or for a long time. We don't know that. But in the process of speaking with them, you're going to find out. And in the process of asking the right questions, you're going to find out. So when it comes down to knowing what the other person has in mind, you have to speak, ask the right questions. Like, I'm here now, you have 101 questions, and so do I when it comes down to anyone that enters my atmosphere, much less. Okay, because spiritually, I don't entertain any foolishness. I don't entertain anything that's not of God. Period. So there has to be a foundation. I'm sorry
The,
to cut you off.
no, that's fine. It's kind of like what BGS is saying. It can't go back to what it was because that foundation is no longer valued. So let's look at the way that a lot of people come to meeting each other. It's just like you were saying. They come to meeting each other through technology,
Mhm.
and it doesn't allow for an organic connection to be created. So everything you're doing, everything you're seeing is an image. I can sell you anything if I understand how you think. This is why advertisers are paid a lot of money to do psychological assessments on viewers, on what drives people, on what compels people to do certain things. And once they get that blueprint, because a lot of people are unconsciously, or I'm sorry, are subconsciously drawn to certain things, they can't break that. And if you can't break what binds you to something, even though something may be bad for you will never be able to escape it. And I've talked about this on this platform before. I had a situation where I had a false pregnancy. I had to ask myself, was it them, meaning the women I was dealing with, or was it me? From that point, hadn't quite turned 30. From that moment to about 36, I was celibate. Didn't date, no sexual contact, no access to women unless we were working together. But it took something so drastic for me to get to a point that I was willing to change. But a lot of people, they just don't care. They'll say, hey, look, I'm only living once, the whole YOLO thing, you only live once. And this feels good at the moment. So I'm going to continue to do it. And they continue to do it till they're broken. And once a human is broken, it's difficult for a lot of them to be put back together. And because they don't have that foundation that set them up for success from the beginning, they were never on the road to get there. So we look at kids coming from broken homes. We look at kids that have no tutelage. when they get to high school or when they get to college. So if you come from a single parent home, who's guided you? Who's gave you any information on how to interact with men, on how to interact with women, on how certain things are supposed to go? It reminds me of the movie The Bronx Tale. And for those of you who've seen it, you'll know this, the portion of the movie that I'm speaking of. When he talks to Sonny and Sonny tells him, he said, hey, look, I want you to do something so you know if this girl's a keeper. She said, you open the car door up for her, make sure your door's closed, lock your door, you get in the car door, walk around the backside, and you peek through the back. If she doesn't reach over and open that door for you, get rid of her. Those type of lessons, this is what David was alluding to. Those type of lessons are no longer taught. So whether you're a female or a male, you end up dealing with somebody to the point where you don't want to deal with them anymore, and you go and replicate the cycle. The only way that is broken is if we start from the beginning and we raise these kids up and teach them, say, hey, look, it's okay to tell somebody, no, you don't want to be with them. It's okay to tell somebody, you know what? You're not my cup of tea. And this is what the Manosphere is empowering younger men to do who don't have a father. And granted, this man doesn't really, at least from what I understand of him, hasn't affiliated himself with the Manosphere, but he talks about Red Pill content, and that's Tate, Andrew Tate. They are literally, people are fearful of what he's saying because now Caucasian males are getting a hold to this information. That was something they didn't count on. Him and the Pearly things. She's in London talking about red pill stuff. They don't know how to deal with us. Like BGS said, she's a tool. Tools are designed to be used. So now we have a foundation that we can build upon because women are starting to say, okay, this is what men want. How do we give men want without losing ourselves? Because the last thing anybody wants to lose is power. And now that women have ascended to this position in their lives where they have more power than their predecessors did, they're saying, hey, we're gonna fight tooth and nail to keep what we have. And if that means we don't have kids, we continue to work, we continue to do this, we continue to do that, then we're gonna do it. So ultimately it's going to result in what we see now in a lot of Western cultures is that men are saying, okay, you know what, we're not gonna deal with our domestic women. We're gonna go overseas. We're gonna get women that are more amenable to what we want. So it's just a matter of time before a couple things happen. The women in these the women in these particular locations are going to change their mindset, or they simply put, they're gonna be left behind. Because men are gonna do what's in their best interest. Most men always have. So there's going to be a tipping point. The only question is who loses.
Let me read this comment. Christine said, "What about children in foster care system? Completely broken family home life. Those children, both male and females, grow to adulthood and still have something to offer, and they do. But also, we have to consider the foster parent. Now,
Mhm.
in this day and age, we know what many of the foster parents are. That's a hustle. That's to pay for their mortgage. They'll take a couple kids in. That's to pay for their vehicle, nice vehicle. So they'll take them in and give the kids bare minimum and figure long as they have somewhere to stay and they're safe and it's all good. But they're not there to really be not all. Some of them they really do, but I'm just thinking about and I don't because I don't have no stats and I know how people are, but I'm just
Well,
thinking,
you do have a statistic. You're sitting right in front of you.
yeah,
I was one of those individuals that was in the foster care system until the age of 16. We do have a lot to offer. The only problem is just like David's saying, what quality foster home are they in? I was blessed with a lot of the foster homes that I were in, they were married. So I got to see what a functional, productive marriage looks like. Live with Black people who were homeowners, who were solidly middle to upper class. Those are the things for me that are my foundation. So even though I was born into a single parent home, I didn't necessarily suffer the effects because I was in foster care. And I saw that Black people can be productive. And brings me to another thing. You got to think about the television programming that we're subject to as Black people. The only two families we saw as Black kids growing up that were productive, The Cosby Show and Family Matters, the Winslow family. That's it. We have never been shown in a light to where we can be productive. You can go back to the blaxploitation era of the 1970s. We were shown at our worst and exploited for monetary gain. And we're still being done the same way. We have to sit down as a people. We have to sit down and figure out, where do we want to go? And it's similar to the question that Greg asked. Do we want families and communities, or do we just want to be hedonistic? Because one thing's for certain, if we continue to be hedonistic, we're not going to survive. We're already being marginalized in this country because of the illegal immigration issue, which a lot of Black people don't even think about. We're going to be, as Dr. Claude Anderson says, we're going to be a minority. We're going to be a majority minority. So these are all the things that we need to sit down as a people and have the discussions about.
We got Dr. Anwar in here. What's going on, brother?
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Can you hear me?
Yes.
We hear you.
Okay, yeah, I have my Bluetooth speaker going, and when I turned that off, the sound on the phone wasn't very good. Hello, I don't think I've met this lady before. Is it Jacqueline?
Jackie.
Hi, greetings.
Blessed evening.
The one thing I'll add to this, you guys know that I'm an avid reader. I've been reading a lot of things on my channel, and I have to credit BGS to turning me onto this book. This book is The Richer Sex by Liza Mundy.
Yes.
I would encourage everybody watching this to go out and get this book. Of course, it's not as good as David's books, but not as good as Cocktail Conversations, but for no Friday foolishness. But the master teacher in the chat said that you can't go back. There is no going back, and I know that that's a very, very stark and macabre forecast for things. But this book, I mean, Liza Mundy gave us so much in this book. You got to realize that there was a point at which our girls were being taught, don't depend on a man. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying what is. Don't depend on a man. And it says it in this book. Even fathers taught their girls, don't depend on a man. And she interviews couples that are very, very mixed up. It's almost like a dog chasing its tail, where the wives, the girlfriends, whomever, they went to school to make more money, and because of the income difference, it's better if the man stays home to be a stay-at-home dad. But over time, she loses respect for him because he's a stay-at-home dad, or they become jealous of him because he's a stay-at-home dad and he's going to the PTA meetings and all the teachers know him. And then in some instances, they just lose respect for the man because they're taking care of a man and a family, when on some primal level, it should be the other way around. But because of the way everything has been re-engineered, it's it's the women who are making more money. So I'm saying this to say that there's nothing wrong with women making a lot of money. I don't think, starting with our generation, we were taught what the ramifications of all this would be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I don't know. It's kind of like nobody knows what to do anymore. And so, yeah, you are each individually piecing things together and figuring things out by trial and error. And I know that when I talk to my mother, when I go home, she says that she went to college to look for a husband. I mean, that's almost unheard of today. I mean, does having a husband even matter? I mean, what is a husband today? What is a wife today? What is a woman today? And the other thing I'll say, I read an article on my channel. It was a blog post on Schoon TV. A gentleman I highly respect named Curtis Schoon. He has his own independent publication, and I think it was entitled "A Father's Advice for Dating in Modern Times." And one of the things that this man pointed out was that it used to be that families kind of vetted who you hooked up with. So, as an example of this, think of the first Godfather movie. Think about when Michael Corleone met Apollonia over in Sicily. He was running from the mob in New York. He saw her. He wanted to meet her, but he had to spend time with the family, and the family had to okay him. I'm just using that as a proxy for how it used to be, and so now everybody's out picking on their own, and all of us like certain things physically. It could be the amount of money that someone makes. It could be the curves a woman has, but everyone's picking individually and not necessarily looking at the foundational things. And the reason that's significant, is in that blog post off the Schoon TV publication, the writer wrote about the data from the dating apps. And what that data tells you is the percentage of men that women find attractive and the percentage of women that men find attractive. What I know is that what was written is that the women find a small number of men attractive. So if you're not in that small number, then you're going to be on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to say. I'm kind of dominating this thing right now, but that's what I wanted to add. It's just a completely different environment than it was when my folks and their predecessors were our age and younger. It's just completely different. And so with it being so different, it's very unrealistic to expect the same outcomes.
Yeah.
And when you say that, again, I don't know if I brought this up last week, but it makes me think you learn a lot at the middle school level. And even talking to some of these young ladies that they're saying that certain guys, like they're talking to me about different boys, or some boys is nerdy, they don't have swag, or they don't got no drip. And then you have some guys that's, one of my students was like, yeah, he paid for me to get my hair done. He paid for me to get my nails done. And I'm like, where the hell he get money from? He like 12 or 13 years old. I don't know, Mr. Glover, but all I know is he come to school, he might give me like $50, whatever. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I know the days with Cash App and different things that parents put stuff in their kids' account, but I'm like, who is monitoring all of this? Like, where's these kids getting this? And sure enough, she have her hair done, so it's not like her hair is jacked up or anything, and her nails be done, and I'm like, wow. So a lot of times I just sit there and just be puzzled, like laughing to myself, like, and then she'll say like I'm irky, but because I'm like trying to figure out the answers to this, or like is this is where it's going, like at this young age, because when I was 12 or 13, that was the last thing I was thinking about, paying this, paying for that shit. I was lucky, you get you get $5, you gonna spend it on chips and penny candy and stuff like that, or be able to go to like skating or and all that. But it seemed like as time gone, shit, a matter of time. The elementary kids will be paying stuff for little girls and all that stuff. It's getting out of hand to me.
And
Hey,
also,
David,
I wanted to
I'm
add,
sorry.
oh, I'm sorry.
No.
I wanted to just add that. And they're also having sex at those ages. So, some of the children that I had to mentor and take under my wing, when you hear them say to you, and these are young girls, some of the boys, they are so being led by these girls. But all I'm saying is these young girls are off the chain, and the guys are not as bad as the girls out here. These young girls are they're saying things like, "Oh, I don't believe in love because love isn't real," and all these things. And so once I hear children talk, and I intently listen to their conversation, I have to step in and just ask questions. And my first question to the young girl was, "Why would you, at 10 years old, start having sex?" And the question, the reason why that thing came up because one of her other friends were trying to actually record her, saying things that your mother don't know about you.
Oh, jeez.
Correct. So I'm watching this whole thing play out. And so when it got to her and she said that, I felt like I had a rubber neck because my head swung so quick. And I looked at her and I just heard her out. And then I pulled her to the side and I said, "Stop the video right now. We're not doing this. You're not putting this on social media. She's going to regret this later. Delete this." So I made sure that was done. And I had to take her to the side. Why is your self worth gone? What made this happen? And I'm going through all the questions. And I realized that she's not the only one. Most of these young ladies are watching these shows on TV about our people and how even though they're in the limelight,
Yep.
rappers, these things, everybody, hip hop, whatever, the land of wherever, they're watching these things, and even though these people's lives are so unreachable for a lot of these kids, but that's what they look up to. And because that is controlling everything right now with these young people, they don't see anything godly. They don't see anything, with the real foundation. And that's an issue. That's a big issue. So I put as many under my wing as I can. I don't care who they are, whose kids they are, because once I started pulling in the young boys, the young girls, and I'm like checking in on them, just regular checking in, because I want to be a restorator of them. I want to restore them to where they're supposed to be before they go out there being the same messed up, broken, and misdirected bunch of kids. So I dive in, and once I start checking in on their health, their well being, their mental state, then we have conversations. You have a need. You didn't eat last night. Where did you sleep last night? All these questions. I'm trying to grab them before they get any further, but
Mhm.
I can only do so much, you know. But I think those things need to happen. We need to start as seasoned adults who care. I think we should start when we overhear a conversation. Step in that conversation. When let's leave a mark. Let's leave a positive something for them to even think about that will make them say, "Hey," and you're doing it in the schools already when you bring up certain things. But my thing is, I feel like as a woman and as a godly woman, I just God directs me to things, but it draws me to just bring them to a place where now, what should I be doing with my life? And why am I doing this to my life? And now here's the changes because now I'm implementing prayer and I'm implementing everything godly that I can because that's all that's going to last on this planet. That's all that's going to last. So when I address the young people, I mentor them from a spiritual standpoint because we have to address that first. Our spiritual being is what's affected more than our physical. So if we're not addressing that, we're not addressing the whole person. And a lot of times, as a matter of fact, the issue of being a whole person, you can't be complete unless you got God in you to complete you. Because no one can complete you. You can't be whole unless your foundation is strong enough to hold you together, which is God. Everything else is autopilot once you got God, because He's going to do everything. He's going to direct you. He's going to mark your steps, order your steps, everything. I'm sorry. Now I'll shut up.
Hey, David, can I go back? You put Christine's comment up.
Uh-huh.
My hope is to say what I said without any malevolence or without attacking anyone. And in saying what I said, I was not attempting to attack women's lib, quote unquote. But I think we have
Oh,
to be honest that when priorities change, everything else is going to change. So, for example, was freezing eggs a big deal years ago? Was that something we talked about? Now,
no.
now, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, uh, in some instances, women freeze eggs. I made a video on this on my science and technology channel. In some instances, a woman might have cancer. She might have to take chemo or some form of radiation. And in that instance, she'll freeze her eggs because she doesn't want the eggs damaged during those procedures. But in other instances, women are doing that because of career and because maybe they, for whatever reason, they haven't found the partner that they want or a partner that they find desirable. Okay, whatever the case, the option is there to put is to put that off now. Okay, years ago we weren't talking about this. So yes, I do think it's important to. It's a different world. It's a different world that we're living in right now. And maybe once all the boomers are gone, we'll stop having a lot of these conversations about, oh, there are fewer young people. You guys aren't getting together like, you know. Um, but let's just be honest that things have been re-engineered so that priorities are different now.
True.
What we're looking at, to what you're saying, and I'm going to go back to what was said earlier. We're looking at the cumulative effect of Briffault's law, in which there will be no relationship where the woman doesn't derive some benefit. That's starting to seep down into the younger generation. So when you have something like that, that's not only, for lack of a better term, codified in their elders, and they're seeing that in real time and they're replicating that, that's only going to worsen as they age. We're talking about preteens, teens. We're not even talking fully functional adults. It is almost as if they're behaving with a black pill recklessness. And for people who don't understand what that means, essentially is they're just living life with what it is. They don't give a damn about anything else. It's hedonism. Let's satisfy the flesh. Never mind, never mind the soul, and as you pointed out, Jackie, the mental, because they don't see any value in that. So if you don't see any value in those other two aspects of being, then you're not going to care to actually even address what can get you to be a whole person. So like I said, with this apparatus here, It's what's feeding them. They're consistently consumed by it. They live for it. They live through it. So if you don't, if there's no balance that can restore them, and this is what you do, and I believe this is what you're doing, Jackie. If there's no balance that can restore them to what um to what is valuable to them as an overall and a complete human, they can continue to follow that path to destruction.
Yes.
So as we often talk about, like we have, it's so many issues or so many things on the forefront that we have to look at. And I guess one of the things is when does this happen? When do we have time? Even if you think about parents trying to school your children on certain things as they get older, teenage years, and you're working long hours or working different shifts, and when does when does this happen? When does it happen? Because also we're trying to keep them busy too, being in athletics and competitions on the weekends. You're running the practices and doing this and that, dance and all that, and then at a certain point, you have to give them time to kind of be a kid, play their video games or do whatever. When are these conversations gonna happen? Is there enough time? Do we have a village to handle everything that's put out there?
Well, David,
Well,
I think you just mentioned a very very important word, and that's village. And I've said this before. Uh, those times that I've gotten to come and hang out with you in Niagara Falls when we're both up there, I'm in awe of the fact that you guys have a little village up there. When there's a birthday party, everybody's there. When there's a celebration, everybody's there. And I think somewhere, I don't know if it's because of um, change to economics. Well, I know that's what happened to us in Buffalo. A lot of folks moved to Atlanta, and a lot of folks moved away from Buffalo. So most of my aunts and uncles were gone. But I think villages were lost.
And I agree with that. And for my family, there's people that moved away, but when it's something big and the family knows, they travel and we all get together. Then you bring in friends and co-workers and everybody. You have a festive thing. So that's the one thing I can say that and I'm big on celebrating celebrations. It's not always about coming together for funerals and repasses and stuff like that. I'll attend those, but I'm like, okay, I ain't gonna say over it because it depends on who the individual is, and I'm always gonna, respect respect the family and the person that passed. But I'm like, we need to come together with good times and celebrations. It can't because too much of our story has been, like I said, funerals and things like that. That people travel all over the world to come to that, but then when you have a niece or nephew or cousin that graduated or got promoted on the job, and and those are the things that I'm big on. Graduations and promotion of jobs and different things. Birthdays is birthday. Yeah, yeah, you should celebrate that, but I'm not one to say, "Oh, I'm turning this such and such. Let's have this big bash." I like to see accomplishments while you're living. So those are the type of things that get me going. Like, oh, okay, you put in work, you set a goal, you made that happen. But some people, they'll celebrate that. I don't know. They celebrate that they went to work for a week straight and have a party. I don't know.
So, David, I'm gonna say something else, then I'm gonna hop off. But I think I see Christine left another comment there, which is a very good one. Pull it up. It says something about marriages were business.
Okay.
Okay, so she wrote, every relationship should be edifying both parties. Marriage used to be a business relationships. Wives were property versus an equal humans. I think she's talking about a man. We need to learn how to find a balance that fits our personal needs. Healthy relationships need to be the focus. What's good for you wouldn't be good for me. Okay. These things need to be established through productive and purposeful conversations. I think that's what Jackie was getting to. I would say also in that business aspect, for some families, it was about uh, consolidating and maintaining and building resources. It wasn't necessarily about love. It wasn't necessarily about, ooh, girl, he made me tingle. It was about something bigger. I think they used to also be about a sense of duty to family and to community, and we don't have a lot of that anymore. So I'm gonna hop off, but I want to say, since Christine left that comment, she talked about leaving a GPS for today. I just think that since things have been re-engineered, and I'm intentional in using that word re-engineered, since things were re-engineered in the way that they were, I think if you're going to tell them about the proper GPS, I think you need to just tell them the whole story, that focusing on professional degrees and who's got the higher salary, if you're not careful, that's going to cause a whole bunch of confusion at some point. And in many instances, I just read one of the chapters in this book. In some instances, even though the woman might make more, she still may want to fall back in her feminine energy and feel like, even though she's making more, she may feel like she wants to feel like she's being taken care of, dated. She may
Mm-hmm.
want to feel dainty. That's not a bad thing to want to feel dainty, to want to feel, but just know that in you making more and pursuing that higher degree, there are going to be certain effects and ramifications for that. And then one of them, Herb mentioned brief false law. One of those unintended consequences is the desire for a man who makes more than you. That's another thing that this constant pursuit of education and degrees and titles, I don't think parents explain that well, because that seems to matter, especially when a woman makes more.
It's true. It's true.
Can I chime in?
Mm-hmm.
And I really, I really think all of those things don't make any sense when it comes down to the heart of a person. I really believe that people who are supposed to come together, I think in this day and age, because there's so much lack of love and more so focus on material things, that people lose sight of the fact that you want to be with an original person, not just for what they have. Even though you get with someone, I don't think before you even know about what they have or the things that their background or anything, if you see a person and let's say it may not even just be love at first sight, but something makes you look at them and there's an attraction or there's whatever. If you follow that without all the background stuff, you'll find that the true core of the love would be there. I find that people just, if you're going into a relationship just because that person has more or that person has what you need, then what happens when that person can't fill that need anymore? What happens when that person can't do those things anymore? What happens when the looks are gone? What happens when the body goes south? No one that's this this the society today is all superficial. Everything out here is superficial. The core of any relationship, and that's where I think the communication cease, because when the desires change, because people do change with time, and when things change, they don't communicate that with their spouse or their mate. They let something catch their eye, they run with it, and instead of allowing the person to to grow with them or whatever, they keep silent, and then they do whatever, and then they experience whatever, and it's not with that person that they're supposed to love and whatever. So I just find that a lot of times people look at the wrong things. Degrees make no difference, because when you're living alone and you're asking, where did my life go and what did I do with it, and you're sitting there by yourself, you can look at all those degrees and wonder what happened to me. People give up on real love because a person don't have what they have. People give up on real love because they see someone in a different light, because they may not be in the same financial realm as they are. If we focus on those things, because one day we may wake up and our money is gone. One day we may wake up and we can't walk, or something is. We need someone with substance in our life so that we know that they're going to be there through the good, the bad, the ugly. Hmm. And I will end it with that. I'm saying I'm going to shut up now.
Well,
But
Okay. I think,
the
so
go
hold on,
ahead, Don.
I see Sawanda left a comment about, she says it's tragic that the fact that Black women are educated and have careers is portrayed as something unattractive. I hope I didn't say that. Why is there the need for us to make ourselves small? I hope I didn't say that
you
either.
didn't say that, and I will comment too. I will respond to that. None of that was even said. The fact of the matter is, um, the young lady that made that statement, I think she was just um, more than likely just thinking about her situation as a whole, as being educated or whatever. But the
Oh,
fact of the
jeez.
matter is, it's not being diminished. It's not that. We're just looking at it as a whole in relationships. None of those things matter. Nothing matters when it comes down to affairs of the heart. That's all I'm referring to. Because when people want good relationships, you're not going to look at the things that's going to disappear, the things that are materialistic, the things that I'm just referring to that. Real relationships don't look at those extra boundaries or put those boundaries out there as something that, okay, well, if a person don't make as much as I do, or if a person is not as educated, then they're not, they shouldn't be there, or I can't love them, or I can't see the good in them, or whatever. I'm just saying, if those are blockages, then that's a problem, and that's for real a problem. No one should live like that, because then you're putting such you're putting yourself in a basket that shouldn't be. I think people should be open no matter what level of education, what level of wherever whatever standings we're on. We should not ever put ourselves in a box and limit the blessings that can come to us just to have a good relationship. I don't care. God will put people in our lives that we need to have in our life, and they're going to bring everything that we need for our lives. We don't know that when we first look at a person. We don't know that from our first conversation, maybe our second, third, or whatever. But then look at the person's heart. That's what's going to take us from the beginning to the end. Hmm.
Mhm.
This is Swanda. This is the problem that your mindset
Hello.
creates when you think like you just wrote. It's not conducive to building a family. So if Black women want to take themselves out of the realm of mating, do that. But do not turn around when you hit your mid 40s and your 50s and ask, where are all the good men? You can't play both sides of the fence and then bitch about the situation you've chosen to put yourself in. This is what the Black Manosphere is railing against. We see that, and then we hear what's been said about Black men since the 1950s and 1960s. We're deadbeats, we don't earn, we're criminals. All the information has been filtered out now and is coming out. Notice you don't hear that stuff anymore. We have bona fide doctors in the Black Manosphere. One deals with Africana studies, the other's a philosopher. And we have Dr. Neil. Shout out to the G with a PhD and Dr. T. Hassan Johnson. Them brothers are doing the yeoman's job getting this information out so we can disseminate it to the masses. So that nonsense you're talking is just that. If you as a black woman will go out and pursue your education and not have kids, do so. But understand you do that at your own peril. You excommunicate yourself from the rest of us.
So,
And
okay.
also, that is not the order of God either, because as women, and I'm speaking from as a woman, okay, and as a godly woman, and I'll say this: when we decide to say that we're just gonna do whatever, run our lives however, and we don't need a man, that is not even of God. Your life cannot be fulfilled in any way without having your mate in your life, regardless of what. And if coming from a godly standpoint, anyone out there hearing me and live a different lifestyle, then so be it. But I'm talking about a godly woman who's living right. You want to make sure that if you are godly, you're going to do the word of God, which means you're submissive, which means you're going to do the things that you're supposed to do, and still, Proverbs 31 woman, you still take care of home, still take care of things that you're supposed to outside of home, and bring glory to your husband, bring glory to your house. Still, now, if that's not a mindset that comes from God, then to me, that woman is shorting herself in a lot of ways. If you feel like, hey, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, like he said, like Mr. Wolf said, if you decide to make those decisions, time will fly. And it's okay to get everything you want, but do it with family. Do it with a goal, knowing that you don't want to wake up and have nobody near you. You have no, like, so many people have that fear right now, having no one to take care of them, wondering what they're going to do as they get older. Are they going in a nursing home? Eh, all these different things that are really, really, really important because their life has passed them by and they don't see anything but their accomplishments.
Right.
But that, go ahead, I'm sorry.
It
Well,
reminds me, I'll tell a story real quick. It reminds me of a female I dealt with about 13 years ago. She was approaching 40 years of age. And she had just created a Facebook account. She was linking up with all her high school friends, college classmates. And the one thing she said to me, she says, life has passed me by. I'm looking at all my friends and they're all either married and or have kids. Their lives are full. And here I am working a homeowner. I have a college degree and I have nothing. This was a Caucasian female saying this. And by and large, Caucasian women are the most married demographic in this country. So tell me, how is it that they can go to school, get a bachelor's, a master's, and or a doctorate and still be married? That's because they prioritize family. We are starting to see that marriage is now becoming a class issue. No longer it's about love. Marriage, that's some lexicon nonsense that women have been fed, because women are emotional beings. They eat it hook, line, and sinker. Marriage has always been business first. We look at the royal family and going back to the Middle Ages and beyond, where marriage was a business, it was about consolidating and building. You can't build as a single woman because that's not in your nature.
so I promise I'm gonna jump down. You
Yeah.
know, guys, I just had a talk with Alonzo Hall, the All-Star advisor. I think
Yes.
it might be fun for you guys to have him one night to talk about relationships and money
I'll reach out to him. I know who he is. I follow
finance.
him.
Okay, and insurance, because there are a lot of people. You know, I'm not going to get into that, but last thing I'll say, the gentleman who wore a suit, who everyone hated, who said was a misogynist and all those different things. That was one of the fundamental questions he asked on his show every night. Was that you make $30,000, $40,000? Who's going to take care of you when you get older? Who's going to be there with you when you get older? Even if you are a high earner, who's going to be there with you when you get older?
Right.
Okay, and that's not a question. And so then you have someone like I don't know if you all are familiar with Kendra G.
Crimson Cure.
Sorry.
Crimson Cure.
No, not her. Not her.
Oh, you're talking about Kendra G, not Kendra D.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she picked up some of the Image Guy's talking points after he died too.
Mm-hmm.
But
Sure did.
on another channel, a clip was shown of her father, and her father was just blowing her head up. Don't subjugate yourself to no man. Man. You know, you know, you don't need a man and a man this and a man that. But I don't know if you ever talked to her about who's going to be with you when I pass away, who's going to be with you when you get older. And when you get older, both genders, I think you naturally start thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
But if no one tells you that's going to become a concern one day, then you'll party like it's 1999 and you look up and you're 40 and you're 50 and you will have made no preparations for anything. So on that note, I'm going to hop off. You guys have a good night. And gal, you all have a good night.
Appreciate you
All
coming.
right. Thanks, Dr. Dunbar.
All right.
Have a blessed night. Wow.
These conversations get thick and heavy.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah. And I always want to go back to the point when we talk about needing each other. And again, you mostly hear women say, I don't need a man. I'm never going to say, again, like Herb said, I could function and do all right. Will it be the best quality of life if I was doing it all by myself? Probably not. Might be haphazardous. But I'm never going to say, oh, I make this amount. I don't need a woman, because that's bullcrap. That's bullcrap. It's certain things that y'all do that make things better and make things easier, and vice versa, as far as men with women. So we need to get rid of that narrative and start thinking, yeah, I need to find the right person that I need. But then again, we get caught up in semantics of words, need and versus want and submission and control, structure, and all of that stuff. And all those words can be interpreted based on your experiences. If someone told me, oh, this woman got good structure, I'm going to say, yeah, she's very organized. So I'm okay with that. I need some organization. But it's people getting caught up in those different words that you got to kind of overlook that and understand that there's different meanings to different words. So if something's working for you, and you got to disregard the terminology and don't get caught up in that, because a lot of people, those same people giving you advice only know the one meaning. They only know one way to interpret it, and they're giving you bad advice or whatever the case is. I've got enough bad advice over the years, especially when I was younger. Now that I got older and wiser, you always have to consider the source.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to say it, ladies, but I think sometimes guys may do a better job of considering the source. Whether
Derek Jackson.
Yeah, when it's their male peers giving out a voice, and you kind of look at them like, look at this one, he just talking, he just talking.
JBT.
Yeah. But women, oh, I've known her since we were in kindergarten, so her word is bond. But she's been on shit welfare, got 2, 3 different baby daddies, and ain't did nothing. He's still listening to her, really? And you got a college degree, she's still giving you advice? For what? What is she schooling you on? That's me just trying to stir the pot. But I'm still serious too.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and it goes back to the topic. The Black Manosphere is not here to destroy. It's here to build. But in order to build, you have to destroy. And I know that sounds like a bunch of nonsense or contradictory statements. So I'll use this analogy. When you want to build a building, what's the first thing that you do? You rip open the ground. That's called destroying. You crack open an egg to make eggs. You have to do something to get something done. And as I said earlier, women do not want to lose the position of power they've obtained. So by trying to maintain that position of power, the family is sacrificed. Once again, if you are okay with that, and I'm talking to you, Swanda, if you're okay with the destruction of your family or the inhibited of the family even being created, then continue to. It's not about black women making themselves smaller. It's about black women playing a role that they're designed to play.
Amen.
So if you want to step out
Amen.
of that role, step out of that role, but keep rolling. Don't turn back lest you turn to some salt like Lot's wife. We
Amen.
don't want you here. We can't use you here. We don't want to hear you cries when you get old and nobody's there. Bounce and keep bouncing.
And I just want to add, as a woman, I just feel like a lot more women need to really understand that when it comes down to relationships, the foundation of where you stand, if you're not standing as someone who has God in them, you're going to fall for anything. Because if you're going to flow with whatever doctrine or whatever theology or whatever views of another person, like, oh, we are making ourselves smaller, we you can't make yourself smaller. You just have to, like you said, fit in the role that we were created to play. And God didn't make mistakes. God made the man and the woman to be side by side. He is the backbone of us. He is the head, and that's where it's supposed to be. So submission should not be looked at as something where, oh, he's going to tell me what to do. If you're with the right person, you will trust him enough to have him help direct you. He's not just telling you what to do. That's why you have a mate who you are friends with and who you
Mm-hmm.
know inside out, who you can trust, who you can
Mm-hmm.
give your all to, who you can pour your soul out to, and vice versa. Because if it's not being reciprocated, then you are not with the right person. You can't just pour out and no one is pouring back into you. But
Right.
I'll tell you this, you have to make the right choices in your partner. Because once you do that and let God guide you to that, then the right man will come into your life because the Bible says the man that finds a wife finds a good thing and finds favor with God. So the man will find favor once he's led by God to the right person. Don't give up on the fact that, you're doing your thing, but just be open and put God first. And God would always direct your path. He's going to take care of you. So, ladies, trust me, this is not something to play with. You have to put yourself where you're supposed to, or your life is going to not be in balance. If you look at a man as though, oh, they're not no good and all of this, then you chose the wrong person. That one was not for you. You just chose something that made you feel a way. You chose someone from the surface, and we can't do that. You have to find someone that has a foundation of God that's going to bless your life, who's going to help guide your life. And if you can't back down to that, then you don't want a relationship. Because in every relationship, if the man is not respected as a king in your house, then you cannot be just the head of nothing. That's not the order of God. You have to play your part and watch how things flow. Trust me. And it took me a lot of years for, no, I've never bashed men. It took me a lot of years to trust what a man will say because I watch actions. I don't just take just people for their words. In Jamaica, we will say a promise is a comfort to a fool, and that's definitely true. When people say, "I promise I'll do this," "I promise I'll do that," but them end up not doing none of that because that's not what their heart is. They show you they're deceiver, not a person of their word, and then most women they'll try to chase that. And I'm thinking, no, sweetie, they just showed you who they are and how they felt about you. So now step to the side and look at another direction. Maybe work on you. Maybe look at why you're choosing these type of people. Maybe look at why you can't even say, well, I will allow God's plan to be my plan. Submission is not saying, oh, he got control. And if he knows where he stand in God, he's going to know where you're supposed to be and not make you feel any less.
W- One of the things is, and I keep going back because they say the best predictor of the future is your past, and you look at the selection process when you're younger. Women were chasing popularity. They were chasing popularity. That's the guys that they wanted to be with. Maybe the guys with the high body count or with the popularity
Or the
had
thugs.
vehicles. Yeah, the thugs had the vehicles. Where guys, it was a conquest to get with a popular female,
Mm.
but they didn't necessarily want that female to be their shorty, as you say back in the days. They wanted that one that nobody really knew. She really wasn't out there. She wasn't on the party scene. And when you stepped out with her, everybody's like, "Yo, who that? Who is that?" And that's that was a good refreshing feeling for guys. Now, like again, the ones that were popular who had already been out on the scene, that was one of those. Okay, I used to have a crush on her back in the. I used to have a crush on her. Oh, she's giving me some rhythm now. Yeah, I'm gonna see what it's about. But you're not gonna be my queen or my lady. It was gonna be that other one who probably was sitting around watching a movie, eating popcorn, uh, just minding her business, got her structured daily, her weekend activities. But she was into you, and when y'all stepped out, shit was all eyes was on her because she wasn't visible like that. And I always look at now on social media, I was like, how the hell do these people be out on the scene every damn weekend? And we just talked about this last weekend. So sometimes you gotta, as Tupac said, sometimes you gotta Machiavelli. You just gotta disappear. You can't be on the scene every time, every week. You just gotta you gotta make people want to miss you.
Hmm.
And like, damn, where the hell he been? What he doing? And keep people guessing. But all too often, people put everything out there, and they're so visible with everything that they're like, ah, here he go again. Here she go again. Make people miss you. I said that last week, and I'm gonna keep saying it.
I just want to address a couple comments that were made. The management needs to work on their end: education, employment, family, community. They selected the inhibiting behaviors. Kevin Samuels did that for 2 years. There are still men, including Mamiya Obsidian Ali, who are putting together platforms for men in IT, which is a high paying field. So before you actually make a statement like that, which is very ignorant, ask the question. This is the part and problem why when I say what I do, you think I'm attacking you when I'm attacking what you don't know, but you tend to take it personal because the way you speak. You don't ask questions, you make assumptions. So when somebody corrects your assumption, you think it's personal. It isn't. But black men are tired of being maligned for what y'all don't understand. You never ask questions, you make assumptions. Ask a goddamn question before you make an assumption.
And also, I want to add that too, even though I didn't hear the statement, but I heard clearly your response. Um, you know, going back to the whole communication, but also if a man does not communicate back or even bring the situation to a female and say, hey, this is what I'm, a part of, or this what I'm doing, and this what we do, or no research is done, then there's the ignorance of the lack of knowledge. But communication is a big deal. So just so
So we covered a lot on this first segment, and I really do want to try to get into. I remember we used to have six talking points. How foolish was we to think we was gonna have to get through it?
That
But
body
you
count thing, I still want to address.
We can drop that in. We can drop that in here, Dave.
go ahead, drop it in now.
Let me ask you a question,
Hmm.
Jacqueline. If you were an
Jackie,
artist,
please.
I'm sorry, Jackie. My apologies.
No problem.
If you were an artist and you had the opportunity to draw the most beautiful or sculpt the most beautiful sculpture, or like I said, draw, paint the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, or sculpt the most beautiful thing, would you want something that's already been done, or would you want to work with something that nobody else has touched?
As an artist myself, it has to be an original, so I don't want anything that someone has played with, tampered with, mulled over, used, ran through. No, thank you.
That's the body count argument in a nutshell.
Okay. Well, I get it. I get it. And the thing is about that, I find that the women that do that, or the men that do that, more so women, it's behind their hurt. And because they never address whatever caused their self worth and self esteem to go, they will consistently do the same thing over and over, trying to find love and end up in the same boat because they're picking the wrong type of people, the same type of people that hurt them, they go for it. So that's an issue within itself that causes that body count. Because once the guy decides he doesn't want to call, then she's like, whatever, I'll just get somebody else. And
Hmm.
then the guy probably changed the club he's going to because, of course, they met there. I'm just saying, not just, just hypothetically speaking. And a lot of times it's just that type of an atmosphere. When you're in that type of atmosphere, you can't trust nothing, unless you just can't trust nothing. And all I'm saying is they go from one type of situation like that to another, and it just it strips them from their self worth. You can't do that with the heart. You can't because for me as a woman, I can't allow myself to be contaminated in any way. So when trauma has happened to a person from a young age, you'll find that they'll either do one or two things: run from that type of activity that caused the trauma, or they're going to enhance that trauma to another level of doing something just as crazy. And it's not crazy, crazy like, but I'm just saying, but doing something just as bad, which going to other people for love and trying to find something that they felt like they lost behind the trauma. So you find women running around that way. They're broken women and they're just doing what they know. And when I have to counsel some of them, it hurts me to know that their mindset is like that, but I see the reasons why.
And there's and to follow with what you're saying, it's not that women are being penalized for being promiscuous. Then this is another thing that the Black Manosphere addresses. It's just that a man wants something that is as close to pure as he can get it. And this,
And
and I've talked about this at nauseum on past shows. Women have to be discerning with who
hmm
they deal with. And this is something that my homegirl Star dropped today, and we'll get into this another time. We're not saying that you can't deal with men. We're saying you have to be selective with the men you deal with, just what you were saying. So if you want to engage in premarital behavior, do so and do it responsibly. Do so with a man that's doing it with the understanding that you're choosing him to do whatever it is that you're doing with, and that information is supposed to stay right there. Because if you're dealing with a man that can't keep his mouth closed, he's going to soil your reputation. And at the end of the day, if a woman's reputation precedes us, then it doesn't matter what man she comes across, her image is already tarnished.
So true. And I understand it from both sides, and I get that. And a lot of women out here, a lot of women. And okay, disclaimer, I'm a Jamaican, so regardless of what, I'm still a woman, but my ideals, my morals, my values, it has to stem from home, right? And regardless of what, if we grow up in an environment that doesn't foster that, then we have no guidance.
Hmm.
That natural GPS is gone. So now we're looking to TV and how they're living and what's around us to actually foster how we're going to live our lives, right? And so because I choose to live a life of integrity, I don't choose to allow myself to be out there. Sometimes when I'm counseling folks through these things, I ask myself, what am I going to be in about 20, 30 years from now? Am I going to be in the same position, blessing other people's lives, but then sheltering myself as well? So I'm in that boat, but I don't judge anybody. I just haven't come across anyone who God has really put there to for me to, you know, take my position. But I still am going to walk I'm supposed to. I'm going to do the right things because, like you said, how it's looked at is not good when a man has to um, think about how many people their mate or their spouse has slept with or any of that. And that person, I'm sure, it probably goes through their mind like, I can't tell them all these things because, you know, but women need to start living a life of integrity. A lot of women need to start looking at the fact that whatever they do with the man, if there's exchange of any semen, they're carrying that person around with them and everybody else. And so their life can't be in content because you can't be content when there's a whole bunch of spirits in you from everybody else. And you can't give somebody the best of you when there's too much of everybody else in you already.
Mm.
And when you're not binding, rebuking, canceling everything else that you did and everyone else that you did, then those things are still following you, and the new relationship is not going to come because before that spirit man for your husband to come and approach you, he's going to see everybody else. That spirit man of his is going to see everybody else, and it's not going to be a turn on to him. And then you ask yourself, why is this person or why are these people always not staying or not being there? Because all of those things that you still have in you is going to show up before you do. And then that man, whether he realizes it or not, his spirit man is responding to what he sees. So he's going to draw back or he's going to approach. So that's why I said the foundation, if it's not spiritual and your walk isn't right, then you are going into any relationship messed up. Even if you're not in one, you got to ask yourself, what part did I play to make it like this? What did I do to contribute to the mess and the way I think? Why do I think this way? What's the origin of that thought process?
Well, one
So,
of the things
pardon?
I said, one of the things people don't want to look at the root cause issues of why or the common denominator. So as much as they're going to try to push it off as long as possible to figure to say it's not me.
Mhm,
It's all them. But if they really sit back and reflect on it, they will say it was the same issues, and I'm
mhm,
the common denominator. No
mhm,
matter what, these were
mhm,
three different type of men, and somehow it didn't work out because maybe it's you. And that's the same thing with guys, whatever. Sometimes you are the issue.
mhm,
Mm-hmm.
As much as you want to believe it or say, nah, not it ain't me, you are the issue. And until you be able to remove yourself and cleanse yourself and say, hey, I know I got these shortcomings. So I need to step away from this scene. But it's too many distractions to keep people not wanting to step away from the scene because we're in Hollywood times. You can't disappear. You can't, again, well, I'm always going to talk about social media and all this stuff. You can't be you can't be without that or posting and showing. You got to post up. You got to show people I'm relevant. I'm relevant. But sometimes the most relevant people are the people who don't say anything at all. And people don't think. They don't think about it because they always, again, searching for that silver bullet, trying to find the right thing and not really taking accountability, as we often talk about, and don't want to look at it and say, shit, it's me.
Yeah.
It's all me.
Now,
That's
I
So
some. Go ahead, Jeff.
no, 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 no. Go ahead because I wanted to ask a question after that. But go ahead.
I
Go
was,
ahead.
and that's what I was saying earlier. When I said I had to look at what I was selecting in women before I could actually move on and decide that I needed to move in a different direction. But that takes some self reflection and understanding. And a lot of people, they don't want to believe that they are the problem. And the old adage is wherever you go, there you are. You are the consistent in every relationship you're in, whether it's romantic, professional, or family. So if something's not working out and you find yourself at the center, you got to change what it is that you're doing if you want a different result.
Amen. Amen. But I had a perplexing scenario that it just came back to mind, and I was hoping that I may get a man's perspective on it because I'm counseling someone, but they brought a scenario to me that um, my view, I feel like it's not being looked at because they have this. Okay, so anyway, they're going through a divorce, and they have a best friend who is a he has a friend who actually has been knowing his wife as well, but not in a close way. Um, and I guess they happen to start talking um, just about all the stuff. Anywho, um, after 2 years, he set up them actually knowing each other more by just she's helping him. She was helping him through stuff, and she is a Christian as well. And anyway, feelings started to develop on both sides. But the problem is, he's feeling like because she knows both of them for years, it's not in his moral standings. But I told him, don't look at it like that because literally you're divorcing. If this person brings happiness to you, you shouldn't look at it that way. Am I wrong for saying that?
It goes back to the adage of people like breaking the code, like, oh, you were friends with both of us, that it's no way that you should talk. And I guess it depends on the individual. Do they honor that and say, nah, that's off limits? Or do they say, man, that was 10, 15 years ago they talked, whatever. I like this person. They make me happy. The hell with all that. So it depends on the, again, the solidness of your friendship with that other person. Because if you live in a small city or somewhere like that, it's bound
Yeah.
to happen.
Yeah.
And
There's
that's what
no
I
other way
told him
around it.
too. And that's what I told him. I said, if you guys are as close as you're saying that you are, then really and truly, you can't not know anyone in Buffalo. You know what I'm saying? You can't not know anyone in a small place. So how are you going to avoid knowing anybody else? So I don't know. He felt like his code was like you mentioned. He's like, it's not right. It's not right. But I said, but you would give up happiness just because? What if God is sending you that blessing? So I don't know because I look at things in a broader view. Because when we just put ourselves in this box and we don't look at the fact that, okay, one thing, you're going through a divorce, and this is done, is been done, right? So you're free to be able to just live. But then you have someone around, not even around you, but he says he talks to the lady all the time. And I'm thinking, okay, you have this, you guys gel, you guys are good. What is your problem? I'm like, what is your problem? And I feel like I don't
Well,
get this.
I can answer that question in 2 words:
Please do.
public perception.
There it is. He mentioned that as well, but I kept saying, after all this, you should just say forget it and just move somewhere. Probably, I don't know. I was throwing so much stuff out there.
The thing about it is this: if you have an individual who's not secure in two things, one, themselves, and
Hmm.
the reason why they need to be secure within themselves is they'll be able to withstand any criticism that comes from their decision.
Mm.
And this is a situation in which the man is going to have to lead, because if the woman has to take the lead in the situation, eventually she's going to break, because women aren't designed to be abused in that particular manner. Not that women are designed to be abused at all, but
Hmm.
there are certain things that a woman is built to endure
Hmm.
as opposed to a man. If you take physical labor, a man is built to endure physical labor more so than a woman, just like a woman is built to endure giving birth to multiple children through her life.
Hmm.
Those are the two things that are supposed to counterbalance each other. So when they get together, you have a whole. As long
Mm.
as that woman can depend on that man to shoulder that blame, that ridicule, and say, hey, look, I don't give a damn what y'all say. I don't give a damn what y'all think. This is my ride or die. I'm not concerned. Not that it doesn't matter. I'm not concerned with who she bedded down with in the past. I'm doing this with the full understanding of her past, and that's not going to impact our future going forward. Once a man sets that template, nobody can touch him. And this is what I always tell people. I tell people you can say one or two things about me. You can say the truth, or you can say a lie. If you say the truth, I will acknowledge it freely, because that's who I am, and I've already acknowledged that that is who I am. That's what makes me. But if you say a lie, I don't need to address it, because it'll become self-evident over time that what the individual said about me, that isn't true. It's a lie. I don't even have to address it. People that know me are gonna say that's not true. I don't have to defend it. They will.
Hmm.
But the actions that a man engages in has to match his behavior. So when I talk about me dealing with women and me not disclosing their names or what we've done, that's a walk that I've walked my entire life. Very few people can tell you the women I deal with. And it's not because it ain't their business, it's because I don't make it public. So the only the people that roll with me like that, no. And too many people, like David said, too many people want to put all their business out there, and they'll realize that there's some things you keep for yourself.
Hmm.
If that female's gonna send you a picture of her in a risque post, keep that to yourself. She trusts you enough. Don't violate her trust. Don't violate the sanctity of your relationship, because she might be able to put you in touch with someone that's going to work out long term for you. She might have a business connection that might work out long term for you. And the individual is going to say, well, how do you know I can trust this individual? And she's going to look at this individual and say, because I trust her. And sometimes that's all you need, is the word of a trustworthy person. See, this is how relationships are built. Relationships are still built the old way, word of mouth. You get jobs, word of mouth. You get promotions, word of mouth. Somebody might come in there qualified, more qualified than you, but you told this person, say, hey, look, I know this individual is qualified, but that's the person you need to hire. And I mentioned this movie before about 2 weeks ago, Up in the Air. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Like I said, these movies are chock full of gems. He's leaving the company, and there's an intern that came in there, turned the whole business model upside down. And it turned out that she had got dumped by her boyfriend, who she had planned her entire life for. She didn't know what to do, and the man was leaving the company. At the end of the movie, he said, "You would be privileged to have this woman." Hired her.
Well, and that's deep. And I think you said that before the holiday season, and I had
Mhm.
pulled it up, and I never got a chance to look at it. But it'll be a time that I will once we have this lull, and like
Mhm.
sports, whatever. Once football is over, and then it's just basketball, I'll be able to catch up on some things. One of the comments that came through was Greg. He said he had to step away because it's internet. He said, "Was the black community stronger in the past, and is it going back to that structure? Going back to that structure, is it a worthwhile goal?"
The answer is yes, yes, and yes. But as BGS said, that's not going to happen just because you have one element that doesn't believe that they need to play that role. So if you have an element that doesn't believe that believes they don't need to play that role, you can't do it. Any relationship takes two people, especially if we're talking heterosexual relationships where you need to build families. It takes two individuals, and if you have one individual that's committed to that and the other individual isn't, you have nothing.
And that's the thing. And I always try to tie my work experiences into these conversations. So when we talk about at our meeting, they talked about the curriculum and the importance of us as counselors. And I was like, the curriculum that they teach in school now is kind of outdated. It's jaded. Like there's no connection to these kids. And and I think that's the big thing, the connectivity piece. So unless they're learning the right things, because if they're not getting it from home and then you're still teaching an old model in school, where the hell are these people going? Where the hell they gonna get growth from? So even with when you think of how the black, why we talked about that earlier, that we would galvanize and listen to, as they say, old heads speak about certain things, but now it's like a turnoff. And it's not just only in relationships, in sports too. That's why sometimes when you have older coaches or they were used to coaching college kids, then they go to the NBA or whatever, things don't work out because it's the relationship issues.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, it's all about relationships, relationship building. And no matter what facet of life that you're dealing with, if you can't build relationships, you don't have anything. So that's the one thing we always need to focus on, like how to build good, strong relationships. And even in the community, you can have a solid family, but if you haven't built relationships with other families, it's all for nothing. It's all for nothing. And I'm probably guilty of that. Like I said, I'm not the one like, hey, I live over here. I work for the school system. If you got any questions, that's not me. I'm more of an observer and sit back and see how things operate. And I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever be that type of person. So, but I know back in the days, our community was built on that.
Yeah.
They were all connected and they knew and they would talk and they had the eye of the street. They would study things and all that. We don't do that anymore. So that's a whole nother issue that
Yeah.
these kids are running amok.
Hmm. Yeah, man. I mean, it's the day and time we in, man. Unfortunately, what once was isn't anymore. Yeah. The, it, it's it's Shakespeare's version of tragedy carried out in Black America, and actually, to be honest, in America, period. It just so happens that certain communities are able to withstand it a little bit better because there's enough of them. With Black Americans, foundational Americans, there's not enough of us.
Yeah, and I think it's in all it's in all ethnic groups, whatever, because essentially kids want to be kids. Kids get along with each other, and they have the same interests. They want to do the same things. It's the old heads that have their views and push their values on kids. So I think a lot of times that's the issue, because kids will get along.
Hmm.
And when you get to the root of stuff, and then they start talking, and well, my mom said this or my dad said this. Oh, okay, this is where that came from. But I think for the most part, it doesn't matter. But sometimes we push our values on kids without explaining to them, like, this is how it was back in my days. And instead of saying, maybe that's not how it is now, but I want you to be cautious. I want you to be aware of certain things. It doesn't happen. I don't know. I'm not coming on here as a person of, like, with expertise and all that. That's why we talk about these conversations, and we want people to come in and give their experiences and share, whether it's personal, educational, or professional experience, like in a job. What are their experiences? Because it's people that are lost in this process.
Yes,
Yep.
so true.
So let me read a couple comments. Marcia, hey Marcia, how you doing? She said, I personally feel as a seasoned woman, I would never have the desire to date any of my late husband's friends. It's just too close for comfort for me, and might be uh there might be a motivation in why he would want to anyways. After all, men do talk, and I don't want to be compared to any other woman he could have been with. Just saying. Said hello, David and Herb. Swanda said, in order for kids to be kids, adults need to create structure. Structure requires strong foundation and action. Yeah, and that's true. I'm not going to dispute that. You have to have structure for them to be kids. But a lot of times when there's no structure, then these kids have to make adult decisions when really they shouldn't. The things that you hear, the decisions that kids have to make, you're floored. Like, really? The stuff that comes to me. And like I always tell them, I don't come looking for y'all with it. Y'all brought this to me. I don't want to even hear all of this, because now it has to go to another level after hearing all this.
And
So,
I also want to make sure I clarify that this was someone that I was counseling, and regardless, I have to hear a person's heart, and when they're telling me their truth, I can weigh in, but I just don't want to weigh in one-sided because I've never spoken to the person, except for that him that I'm counseling. But I just brought it forth so I can get a bigger perspective so that when him and I speak again, I'll be able to come from a broader view instead of just dropping it like that. I'm like, go
I,
ahead, just do whatever.
Jackie,
Go ahead.
what I would encourage you to do, I had a list of black male or content creators from the Manosphere. How old is this individual?
53 or 54, something
What
like
I would
that.
encourage you to ask him to do
Hmm.
is write down what he wants, because everything is going to come from there. So the female can only enhance that. She can't make that for him. And if he's an individual that's lacking in a particular area, then he's always going to want. And if he's looking for somebody to complete that, he's never going to be productive in a relationship. And that was something, actually, not just that was something, that's something a lot of people need to learn. Everybody's talking about, I'm looking for somebody to complete me. Complete you? You
Exactly.
should be a whole person before you get into a relationship.
Amen. Hmm.
If you need another leg to walk, then partner, you in trouble because I can't help you. I only
Hmm.
got two. I don't have another spare leg that I can give you. So we have a lot of that, and we hear that a lot of. We hear that often from women. Take me as I am. Well, as you are doesn't benefit me. So thank you, but I'm gonna pass. And then Dennis talking about, well, we shaming women. No, you're an incomplete person, and I can't use something that's incomplete. You think about it. You wouldn't go buy a car that doesn't have an engine. Don't work. But you have a lot of people that want somebody to pay top dollar for them when they don't work. Why would somebody want to do that? Why would somebody want to subject any amount of time that they have to someone that's ineffective? Doesn't work for me. Doesn't work for the average person. But loneliness is one hell of a drug, and a lot of people will do a lot of things to stop being lonely. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely, but most people can't distinguish between the two.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground, and we're not going to get to that second point about needy partners and stuff like that. That's something can always be a carryover for next week's show, and
Hmm. I'm ready
so
for that one too. I'm
I
ready.
it's nothing.
Seriously.
It's nothing about nothing better than having good old warm up, good old leftovers.
Hmm.
So that's where we at. We're gonna have some closing comments about everything that was said tonight. For Jackie, this is how we typically close out the show. That based on what was discussed tonight, what was the outstanding theme or closing comment that resonated in your head that you want to bring to the audience and kind of give your feedback on. So we're gonna say ladies first. And what was your closing comment on this broadcast tonight?
Well, my biggest takeaway and my biggest thing was communication, and I think that if people become more open minded with sharing what's inside of them and trusting the process that you're in to be the right process, and don't just give your stuff away just because you have that hole in your heart. Counseling will help. You have to fix what's broken before you can move on to have a good, decent life. So,
Well said, Big Bad Wolf.
I'm going to read off a list of names that I want you, the individuals that are listening to now and in the future, to take in something and work in the information. First and foremost, Dr. Tommy Curry. He's been ostracized from America because of his teachings regarding a lot of things that I'll just let you go through that work. Of course, as always, as a he has a catalog of information that benefit just about anybody. Doesn't matter what your ethnicity is.
you're
It
breaking up very badly.
might be because I'm not in my headphones.
Oh, here
Uh,
we go. Okay.
Alan Roger Curry, the great Alan Roger Curry, taking his books. Okay. Of course, Kevin Samuels, the two doctors, the three doctors actually that I mentioned earlier, the Green Gorilla G with PhD, Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, and Dr. Neil. They are all on YouTube. Okay, the G with the PhD is the Green Gorilla. So put that in the search engine through his platform. Same with Dr. T. Hassan Johnson is actually on Facebook, so you can come up here. Um, let's see who else. That's it. Like I said, I have a long list here, but that's a short list of people that I would tell you to just go look at their work. If you want to know Black Master does, that's a good synopsis. Ellen, just so I am clear, Ellen Roger Curry did not align himself with the Black Manosphere. But he puts out very good, has put out very good red pill content. He's no longer among the living. I just want to give that man his due credit for the things he's done for us to continue on with this legacy as well. Him and Kevin Samuels, both happen to be Kappa brothers, so acknowledgement to them. And as always, growth and understanding, courage, great Godspeed. See you next time.
And for me, and I was meaning to mention this earlier in the show, so it my closing comment really doesn't have anything, but I always got comments throughout the week. I want to give a shout out to my city, Niagara Falls, New York, and give a shout out to Andre Manny Wilkes.
Yeah,
The passing of him, which it hurt a lot of people, and they're going through it because anybody who knows him knows he was always on the go. Could be annoying at times, but always on the go, always progressive, always innovator, and sometimes we do have to give people their flowers while they're alive and be able to say things. I probably wish, and we've reached out, and reached out to me sometimes, and I think he kind of admired some of the work I was trying to do, but I would sit back and watch his work, and I would call him P Diddy or whatever because he was always trying to bring the city together, have events, and I guess just keep people joyous and not having crime filled negativity stuff, just bringing people together with happiness. Well, he ended up passing, I will assume yesterday morning, and it's tough to think about that because he was part in our era, he was part of Niagara Falls. Manny was Niagara Falls, and he was always striving. And I want to send a shout out to his family, close friends, his brothers, Nuke, Tez, sister Dom. Hold your heads high. Continue to live. Continue to move his legacy forward. And I know he had a couple events coming up. Got to try to make sure that those events happen, and we just got to keep grinding because again, all this stuff we talk about doesn't matter because your life can change in seconds. And that was the message that I talked about a couple weeks ago with Damar Hamlin. And he's rebounded. He's doing well. He showed up at the Bills facility, but some people don't make it out the woods. And we have to put all this stuff together and try to push forward and try to be better individuals for our future. And certainly, we got a tall task on our hands when we think about the younger generation because they need all of our energy, all of our efforts, all of our expertise. And again, one of the things I say, I don't typically go chasing kids. The ones that I impacted, they come to me, but if the ones not coming to me, they're coming to somebody. Just be there for them. Just be there for them because we can't do this all alone. We have to work together. So whether it's Jackie, whether it's her, we have a subgroup of people. Excuse me, the hiccups. That's what happened when I go through my transitions of getting a cold and all that stuff. So hiccups is part of it, and we have to do our due process with the kids that come to us, or adults, or anybody. We just got to stay in it together because nobody has the ultimate solution. No speaker, no author, or whatever. The truth comes in our inner souls that we have to be the best that we can be and try to impact as many people as we can. And the more people keep coming to you, that means you're doing work. So just think about that. With that
Mm,
said, I appreciate you, Jackie, coming on. Hopefully, you won't be a stranger.
I will not. I will
Appreciate
be
the.
here for the next week.
All right.
Next week's show, if you would let
Oh, you're good. You're solid. I will definitely send you the link. Appreciate everybody who commented in the chat. And no matter what, we still got to keep having these conversations. Whether you think they're not productive, whether you don't think anything is getting done, because we never know what somebody will take away from this and say, "Man, I applied that and it worked." Usually, stuff like that happen after time. They come back to you after, and they'll tell you. You never know really in the moment when you're impacting someone. It usually takes time, but I'm here for it. Appreciate you all. Everybody, stay safe. Have a great week. Continue to reflect on what MLK brought to the table, and let's just try to do be great and be well. With that said, we out, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.
God bless.
Take care.
All right.
God bless.